So welcome everyone. Gabi and Sarah here. We are so glad you are here. We just wanted to introduce ourselves a bit so you know some more about us. So I'm Gabriele Schlumpberger, a kindergarten teacher, healing touch certified practitioner, licensed massage therapist, Be Conscious creator, and Schmiko method practitioner, instructor, life coach, and natural health consultant. I'm always searching for the newest knowledge and energy release practices in order to improve the care I can provide for my clients. Sarah and I both own a private practice specializing in empowering clients dealing with COVID, long COVID, vaccine concerns, stress, trauma, depression, and various mental and physical issues, guiding them on a transformative journey to reclaim control over their well-being and life.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Charbonneau, and I know you guys have seen both of our faces plenty around in the group, but I'm also a Healing Touch certified practitioner and a Schmiko method practitioner, as well as a life coach. And I was lucky enough to have a childhood that really was enriched by holistic experiences. And, I can now offer my clientele a distinctive, ever-expanding approach to healing and well-being, and really assist them in regaining their love for their life song. And Gabi, which she's my mom, in case you hadn't caught on to that. We're co-owners now of Heal Empower Love, and it's been an awesome daughter-mother team that we've been going strong for almost getting close to 2 years. And together we've have pretty much 40 years of experience in energy therapy fields. So thank you, everybody, for being here and for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we have 4 wonderful weeks filled with tremendous amounts of information and tools to help yourself on your path of healing. And the first 2 weeks will be more about concepts and knowledge, background knowledge, and then the last 2 weeks are going to be more tools that you can use to actually help yourself when it comes to trauma. And if you have any questions, just leave them under the video and we'll get back to you, or if we see it during your life, we'll try and answer them too. Okay. Now, before we jump in, just a reminder, we are not trained mental health professionals. So if you are experiencing trauma or need professional help and are at that extent and level, please consult with a qualified healthcare provider or mental health professional, okay? And we just wanted to share a bit about our own personal journeys and stories in regards to trauma. So for me, about 2020, when the pandemic hit, I also had my son in that January. So about 6 weeks-ish before the pandemic hit, I had quite a traumatic birthing experience, unfortunately, that kind of spun me into, it was a lot of trauma involved. It was a really hard delivery, very long delivery, traumatic. And, it ended up with me kind of falling into postpartum anxiety, depression. And then the pandemic hit as well. So it was just kind of a whirlwind and really just not a fun time for me at all. And it just kind of kept building trauma on top of trauma for me. And I didn't initially even realize it until I started using, tools that we know. And I kind of started coming back out of the hole, digging myself out, realizing, oh my gosh, I can't even believe how much of that I carried with me. I started developing, physical symptoms from the traumas that were developed and the anxiety and depression, which were based not only on the wacky hormones, of course, that you have after delivery, but also the traumas that happened with the birth. And then on top of that, with the pandemic.
Yeah, and for me, one of my bigger traumas was just about 2 years ago. We realized that my mom is not able to stay any longer in her apartment as her health were declining, and especially her mental health, developing dementia. And so we had to find a good nursing home. and a room, especially in the area where she is living, so that still people she knows can visit her. So that already was a kind of a challenge. And once we accomplished that, then we had to fly to Germany. So I'm originally from Germany. And then we had to clear out her apartment, sell everything, give things away. And that was really hard for me because I also grew up in that apartment and in that area. And I started to get, feeling things coming up, older traumas, and also developing traumas around that, seeing my mom in this condition, and also doing all this work, without my husband, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And then I started to using all the tools we have to release trauma, and that helped me really to get through this time and getting to be myself again. And now let's get started with the fact that all of us have experienced trauma in one form or another, big or small. And when we go and look at the Merriam-Webster definition, it defines trauma as a disordered psychic or behavioral state resulting from severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury, or even just as an emotional upset. However, to us, that simply just scratches at the surface of what trauma really means and entails, and we will unravel how we view trauma, the ripple effects of trauma, what unresolved trauma can cause, and ultimately what you also can do about it. And to us, trauma is any event or emotion in your life that comes as a very unpleasant surprise, big or small, on all levels of your being, on your physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual level. Trauma affects all parts of you. Traumas are the hidden wounds that we carry around each and every day, and no one can see them. They may be wounds that long have scarred over, but they have an impact on how we live our life every single moment of every single day.
Right. So in trauma, it can result from a psychologically overwhelming event, and it can lead to, shock, denial, changes. And this is actually research based, like chemical changes and physical changes in your body, your mind, and behavior. Healing is possible, but, during the process, the trauma can still have lingering effects. So traumatic effects can have an impact, again, it doesn't matter how old you are at any age, on your mental and physical health. And although if you think about it, post-traumatic stress symptoms like anxiety, flashbacks, disturbed sleep, they're common, and each person's experience still is unique. Not everybody's going to experience the same symptoms, right? And then these hidden wounds often lead us to repeat certain patterns in our lives. We experience trauma, and because of the trauma, patterns keep repeating. So if you think about it, you may have experienced a car accident as a passenger that was asleep, like you were sleeping in that car that crashed. And ever since then, you just can't fall asleep on car rides anymore because you're more hypervigilant, right? It's a pattern of not feeling safe enough and struggling with trying to cope with what you're doing well. And when you're also experience, for example, abuse, like long-term abuse, you end up jumping whenever someone else in your vicinity because you just don't know what to do. Or when you were swimming and you had a near drowning experience, you don't want to get in the pool anymore. All of us carry these invisible scars, and every single one of us has them. And what's important to keep in mind is that we all see trauma differently. This is key. We all experience it differently, okay? So something that might seem traumatic to one person might not bother someone else, or it might traumatize them in a completely different way.
Yeah, and that being said, trauma can be caused by major events such as natural disasters, violence, accidents, or things that didn't happen. Additionally, it may involve responses to persistent trauma like emotional abuse or childhood neglect. In childhood neglect, you have all the things that led to trauma of something that didn't happen, such as your mom loving on you. However, There are daily minor trauma that our bodies and subconscious register and store, but that we may not even recognize as trauma. It can range from cutting our finger while cutting to a sibling fight evolving into a physical altercation, to us having pre-programmed behavior to avoid body shaming or bullying. And they are frequently camouflaged as something we feel obligated to do, but have an adverse reaction to in our body. And adverse reactions are most of the time an indicator of an underlying trauma having occurred, of your intuition truly saying stop and rethink. We don't simply develop an adverse reaction to, for example, large groups without some underlying reason and often trauma in relation to it.
Last we wanted to say that in most cases, traumatic events, they don't last long, right? It's a short blip, a short experience, but the ramifications might actually be a lifetime. So, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder, it affects 20% of trauma survivors, and many more suffer actually subthreshold symptoms. And at 20% is really only a percentage of people that are actually being treated. So there's most likely many more that are undiagnosed, and that's making their life pretty difficult, sadly enough, and it's something that we would like to see changed. So, just as a brief recap for today, we shared our personal stories. We explained how we view trauma, what can cause and lead to trauma, that trauma can camouflage as something we feel an adverse reaction to situation-wise, and also that everyone that experiences trauma experiences it in a completely different way. Okay, so just if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and let us know your thoughts as well. We're here for you. Now the question is, now how do you know what trauma responses we are in and how previous traumas can dictate our lives? You got any ideas? Well, if you want to find out, then join us next week for a live on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. We are continuing with the ripple effects of trauma and how it shapes our lives. See you soon.